What's going on? Boys, thanks to our patrons and Fiverr customers, arm yourselves, life stuff. But we don't really have a topic this time, more a feeling of unformed words. So we're just going to talk and see what happens. I finished listening to Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, the audiobook, free on YouTube. And I see why people like it. But the first Hunter S. Thomas book I read was Hell's Angels. And I think Hell's Angels was published before Fear and Loathing? I'm not sure. Regardless, there is a marked difference in essence and style between those two books. Vegas reads like a weird comic book. Thomas presents you with a bunch of weird, wacky shit and leaves you to make up your mind, which is common for a lot of his writing. But I think the difference between Vegas and Hell's Angels is in Hell's Angels, Thomas is a participant, but he's also an observer, presenting you with wacky shit and welcoming you to make your mind, but also including his own commentary on the weird or wacky or awful shit going on. He feels like an odd but an actual reporter. Whereas in Vegas, it's almost like he writes himself as part of the wacky tapestry, one of the things to be observed and commented on, rather than an observer standing alongside the reader, one foot in, one foot out, and commenting. He's in it, but he's not totally in it. And he's certainly not whacked up. And for that reason, I like Hell's Angels a lot more. Because while Vegas is super on the nose, it's directly about the American dream, Hell's Angels is also about the American dream. It's also about America. It almost feels like in Hell's Angels, Thomas cares still, and in Vegas he does not. And if you're interested in Hunter S. Thompson, I strongly recommend you read The Rum Diary, or The Rum Diaries. It's his first, I think it's his first ever written novel. I know there's something called The Jellyfish. I don't know if that came before Rum Diary or after. They came out close. But Rum Diary was his first published fictional novel. And it's funny the way the world works. Fiction is always more accurate and correct than fact, and fact is always weirder than fiction. And based on what I've read, it seems like it's been so long since I've read it, but I think the main character of the Rum Diary is the sort of man Thompson actually is. And I've noticed a funny pattern with authors. If you take fiction seriously, I would bet a huge sum of money you've written at least one short story, if not a novel, about a reporter on a tropical island or in a tropical environment who gets tied up in weird shit. Seems like every author's written that story before. I hate that dumb the aristocrats joke thing, like that's something comedians are supposed to do, and I don't like it because it's become this agreed upon thing, this dumb shit norm. It's an obligation. That's what it is. But the way a comedian tells that joke is supposed to tell you a lot about them. I've found the way an author writes their journalist or reporter in a tropical environment who gets caught up in weird shit says a lot about them, whether they mean it to or not. I don't know why that combination reveals people's characters so well, but it does. And that's not an obligation because it's a loose pattern. And not all authors stick to it, of course, but quite a few of them do. Anyway, I won't spoil the Rum Diary or Rum Diaries because it's worth a read. It's fascinatingly dull. A young man is going out into the world and trying to seize upon opportunity, live an adventure, do something interesting. It is not what he expects. It's not very fun, it's not very fulfilling, and then it all falls apart. And I think I'm in a weird mood, and I'm in a weird mood right now if I didn't tell you. Because listening to Fear and Loathing and thinking about Hunter S. Thompson's life and career brought me back into that Rum Diary space and got me thinking about life and why I feel about life the way I do. And the way I'm beginning to feel about life now, as I'm getting closer to the end of my 20s, is very different from the way I felt when I was just getting into my 20s. I think thinking you want to die, feeling like you want to die, is a natural reaction to the world we live in. And that feeling can either change or ratchet down as the years roll in. What I'm coming to terms with is the fact I don't want to die. In fact, I am so terrified of dying. And well, I'm terrified of dying for tons of reasons. Reason number one, dying is scary, but one of those other reasons is depending on how your life turns out, your horizons don't narrow as you get older. They broaden, or they can broaden. I think the more you participate in the world and understand or learn how things work and why things work the way they're set up right now, you realize there are, in fact, alternatives. And the alternatives you start to notice are different from the alternatives you imagine when you're younger. Because when you're younger, you imagine, or the alternatives you imagine are wild. And then if you dare to believe in them, society, your peers, and experience will tear you down and stomp on you, informing you in no uncertain terms your alternatives, your imaginary alternatives, are just that, imaginary, totally divorced from reality, could never happen, even if you were able to try to make them happen, which you aren't. And I think that's when the I want to die feeling really kicks in, because you feel trapped. Not just by the man holding you down, but reality. Why do I exist on a cruel plane that cannot be better? Why do I have consciousness that allows me to imagine things that cannot be? However, once you've been in the shit for a while, if for some reason you decided not to die, one, and not to completely give in with depression or substances or just folding, your soul folding, and you don't give up for no reason because there's nothing to aspire toward, there's nothing to dream about, there's no way you can change things, so why don't you give up? If you choose not to give up in any capacity, no matter how small, if reality is playing with Lincoln Logs and you were dreaming about Legos, which you can't do because Legos are totally imaginary, once you learn Lincoln Logs enough, and again haven't given up, you realize there are different configurations for Lincoln Logs. There are things you can aspire toward within the realm of possibility. There are real alternatives that can exist. Now, the status quo, which ranges from high up the man, the them, down to your peers who don't know shit, don't do shit, and are either comfortable enough or apathetic enough. They don't want to fight. They don't want you to know about it, because then you are a threat to the status quo. The man doesn't want you climbing because the man is already up high. Your friends or your peers don't want you climbing because then you'll be above them and they aren't going to try to figure out how to climb themselves. Nobody who cares about you wants to see you succeed in any meaningful fashion. Nonetheless, there are alternatives, and there are a bunch of them. I watched a short about a guy who's granted immortality, and every 100 years he meets with this god or angel or whoever that gives him immortality to determine whether or not he wants to keep living another 100 years. And in the short I watched, this immortal dude has lived the worst 100 years on the planet. And his benefactor asks him if he's ready to die. And the immortal responds, no, of course not. And I think that's how I feel right now. Maybe in a, oh, not maybe, definitely in a less optimistic way, but the essence is there. I might hate, generally, if there is an object, then I am a subject that verbs it. I hate noun. But I don't want to die without having realized any of these alternatives, seized upon any of these opportunities, no matter how difficult or painful they are to achieve. There's so much possibility out in the world, but the way society is engineered and socialized, it's designed to keep you from opportunities. Lately, I have been feeling twitchy and restless. I feel like a prisoner in a cell who glimpsed the outside world for the first time recently. And when you start out in your cell, you're imagining an outside world even though you've never seen it, and it's Willy Wonka land in there. Oompa Loompas dancing all over the place. And then you're beaten and told, no, that's not real, and you're demoralized rightly because they're right. It's not Willy Wonka land outside. But then, for the briefest instant, you see there is an outside world, and it's not Willy Wonka land, but it's not this cell. And now that you're aware of it, you can't get your mind off it. Almost all my professors in university told me, your 20s are the worst decade of your life. And I believe them. I think the pain of your early 20s, or if the pain of your early 20s is hopelessness, then the pain of your late 20s is unrealized or inactionable or unactionable in any way you can figure out right now hope. Because I see the alternative world out there, and I'm taking all these actions to try to get there because it is real. However oppressive society is, there are alternatives out there, and you can see them, and they're within the realms of physics, but nothing I'm doing is getting me there right now. And that is... it's a different sort of pain. Because one of the lessons I've learned is the long game. And you'll see these dumb motherfuckers talking about, well, you peak in your late 20s, early 30s, and then it's all downhill from there. I don't buy that. If your measure of greatness is your ability to recognize opportunities, seize upon them, enjoy them, make shit happen. Because the reason my strategies are not working right now is because I'm fucking stupid. I'm Fight Club. I'm an adult boy. You reach the age or the skill set you can recognize possibility, but you have not reached the age and skill set you can make good on them yet. And that's maddening. My leg is twitching nonstop. Because one of the pains of living, one of the pains of aging, is even if someone gives you, let's say you're 18, an 80-year-old person gives you the exact keys to every door you want to unlock in life, exactly the keys for the exact opportunities that you want, tailored to the exact methods suited best to you to use them, it feels like there's a limiter. Even if you have the key in your hands, you won't be able to understand how to use it until you've reached a certain age. Again, even if you have that key in your hand and someone has explained to you how to use it, it doesn't click until the time is right. And it's maddening. Call me selfish, call me impatient, I don't want to wait. I just got through my years of utter hopelessness. Now I'm in the age of seeing hope just over the hill, but being stuck in mud, spinning tires, or wandering around trying to figure out how to get where I need to go, even though I can see it clearly. And I trust that will change, but I want it now anyway. On a logical level, you understand it to be a time and experience thing. As long as, I think it was Coppola who said it, perfection is many small things done well. You be patient, you keep making good, small decisions, and eventually you will level up. And you will level up. But on an animal level, I hear the clock ticking. I know tomorrow isn't guaranteed. I know nothing is guaranteed. So I feel, unless I'm laying into the gas, I'm not going to get anywhere. And I recognize all that's going to do, flooring it, is going to spin the tires and continue not to get me anywhere, because the time isn't right. So, you're in a paradox, John. No number of actions will get you anywhere until the time is right. Yet, you can't not take every action you can. In your early 20s, you feel like you're drowning because you think it can't happen. You feel like you're drowning in your late 20s because it's not happening. The additional maddening thing is, you know, in hindsight, once you have figured out how to get where you need to be, once you've passed that time gate, what you should have done will be totally obvious. Because when you're gunning for these real alternatives, you don't need to bend space and time to make them happen. All you need to do is put together the right materials and combine them with the right actions at the right times, and then you get what you want. People say you can't replicate success, and that's true to an extent, but when you're talking about... because these are like little mouse holes out of your prison cell. Not everyone will be able to fit if they're even aware of them, but some people will be aware of them, and some people can fit. Some people can replicate success sometimes. It's another matter of awareness, ability, and timing. So I think what I'm doing right now is scanning the prison for mouse holes I could fit through, and then ideally hustle other rats like me through that same hole before they patch it up. Because they will patch it up. Example, writers. I'm having trouble publishing my first decent novel for a number of reasons, but the main one is people don't read, and the few people who do read don't want to read what I'm writing. Supposedly, but also probably. Almost nobody reads. What do the few people who read? You're reading spiffy self-help nonfiction. You're reading the classics and maybe some splinters off those classics if you want to get a little more niche, but not really because they're attached to those classics. Or you're reading BIPOC erotica, which there's a lot of new stuff in. And I don't have anything against BIPOC erotica, but there's a monopoly on it, and it's a justified monopoly, because who else reads? You're better off getting the rights to publishing the classics if you don't want to cater to the remaining reading public, which are BIPOC people who want to come. Well, to be fair, there is the stars and bars segment of fiction that is surviving. But why would you want to read a fictional story about a military dude when you could read a real life account of a real military guy, and he's gonna throw his leadership and lessons and lectures in there too? If you're a writer and you wanted to publish traditionally, I'm not saying it can't happen, but even if you publish, you're fucked. You might get published, you're probably not going to make a lot of money. That mouse hole got covered. Yet, if you're a writer, you specialize in telling stories. And people can't get enough of stories. It's just the medium has changed. It's a similar mouse hole, but in a different place with slightly different dimensions. But it's there, and if you can figure out how to work it, you can do it. For now, until it changes again. So I'm feeling along the walls of these cells, trying to find a hole that will give me an alternative life that isn't my imaginary fantasy life, but it's something different. And once you learn to enjoy possibility for itself rather than wanting something specific, then any possibility is grand. Anything other than this cell is grand. Get through it with whatever skills or knowledge I've acquired, and then drag other people through until they close it. I went on a tangent, and the train of thought drifted onto another set of tracks. The point I was trying to get at is there is a way to get through that mouse hole right now. You just haven't unlocked the ability to understand how to do it yet. And that drives me crazy because I know it's there. I just can't wrap my mind around it yet. The reason I brought up the fiction was I know there is a way for me to succeed as a writer, but one, it won't be as a writer if it happens, when it happens, and two, I could be doing it right now if I just goddamn knew how to, but I'm not there yet. And I don't know what steps to take to figure it out. All I'm capable of doing is trying to throw the right shit at the right wall until something sticks and things start making sense. I'm an emperor. I'm a magician. I'm a hierophant. How long do I have to live in this aimless, humiliated, insecure, financially unstable state? When am I going to be able or going to understand how to take my throne and enjoy possibility? And it revs up the impatience even more because you can sometimes feel things you know are going to be important to what you want later. I was staring at, not even reading, an old Secret Service handbook, and in the handbook is it's the state, but it's basically a corporate hierarchy. I know corporate hierarchy is going to be important to the SOA mouse hole, but I don't know exactly how yet. I know alternative culture is going to be part of it. Because, not to toot my own horn, but, well, to toot my own horn a little bit, I don't see anyone else selling what we're trying to sell here. Yet, I know there are buyers of what we're selling who don't just want to buy it, but are down with it. You don't want to be unique. You don't want to be special. Nothing in life is more vindicating, more uplifting, than realizing there are tons of people out there like you. And not just a little bit like you, but I mean exactly like you. Like you're tuned into the same spiritual or psychic frequency. Now, you shouldn't be friends, probably aren't going to get along, but they're out there. All they need is a headquarters. there is another wave of culture ready to be harnessed. It might not change the world, certainly won't change much, but you can organize a prison break. Or maybe prison break is the wrong thing to call it because we're never going to escape the prison. But you can get the life you want. These are achievable natty gains. I think the way to describe what I'm feeling is restlessness and anxiety. I feel like I'm on a timer, but the only way to progress is to pass time well. Meaning, you don't have a lot of time, but you need to spend time to get anywhere, and you don't know how much time you have left, and you don't know how much time you need to spend. There is a destination, but you don't know how far you need to run, and you know you're being hunted, but you aren't sure by what. And in the meantime, all you can do is stress. Because although this is your journey and you're taking these actions and it's your time you're spending, it really feels out of your hands. And it is out of your hands, but it doesn't feel that way. So you try to make it feel like it's in your hands, but then the more you do that, the more you're reminded, you're made aware it's out of your hands. It's a really stressful process, and you could die at any time. You could have any sort of financial emergency and the whole thing could be over. You could get in a car crash tomorrow and be dead. You could get arrested for no reason tomorrow and be in prison for the rest of your life, which is worse than death. And I think one of the reasons it's worse than death, that's one of the things I think about a lot. And for some reason it doesn't, my brain doesn't work very well in regard to why prison is worse than death. I'm pretty sure one of the reasons is the deprivation of possibility. For any reason. For any reason, your society, your peers, your ugly, beloved little humans can deprive you of the only thing worthwhile in life. And that's just it. They don't even give you the decency of killing you. We're rambling. We're going 120 in a mud pit because we haven't figured out where to put that energy, so we'll find the traction to get where we need to go. We will find that traction eventually, but it's the gosh darn paradox that makes you feel like you're drowning and you aren't getting anywhere when you should be getting somewhere, because you can get somewhere, because you've seen it and it's real, and you know there is a way to get there. You just have not aged enough, developed enough skills to make it happen. Damn it. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't.